Hello. So today I'm going to come on to answer another question that I've seen posted a lot related to gang stalking and holding the gang stalkers responsible. Okay, so one thing that we have to consider is that, as I've mentioned many times, the individuals that you think are gang stalkers sometimes can be relatives, friends. It can be coming from government organizations, aka the police themselves. You will see neighbors getting involved, okay? And yeah, you might be able to spend your energy and your time, going out there with your camera trying to take pictures of them and things like this, which I've never actually done because I feel like it's also a waste of time, especially since I know what it's about. As I've mentioned before, we live in a world, in a simulation, and the vast majority of the people that we see around us do not have souls. They're just people around us walking around, and they do not have souls. They are backdrop characters, as Dolores Cannon once phrased them. They are NPCs. So that's why you'll say, like, oh, but it's my neighbor. Oh, but my boyfriend turned on me. Like, no, it's that you were dating an NPC. Yeah, your boyfriend was an NPC. Oh, no, but I don't know, my own aunt, and your aunt's an NPC. Okay? We can be in families where we are the only individual with an actual soul. Maybe there's a couple of us in the family with actual souls, but consider that almost, I would say, 60-70% of the population in this realm, this planet Earth, are NPC, okay? So that only leaves us with about 10 to 15% of the population that have souls. And besides that, there's, like, I wouldn't say of those, but besides that, then there's 1 to 5% of the population awake and aware of what's going on. Okay? Within the context of the NPCs, I can tell you I'm not 100% sure how it works. But obviously, the ones that are actually carrying out the function of gang stalking you most of the time are, let's say, the programming, okay? They are the general NPCs with no souls, just following directions, just following the narrative, etc., okay? But there does seem to be a little subset group of NPCs who are the ones who are, like, pushing the narrative or guiding them to do certain things, okay? For example, I'll give an example. When I was in Barcelona, I noticed that, of course, like, it's hard to tell because, you have the mass majority of the NPCs just following along and doing the gang stalking, so they're the ones doing this or doing that. But there is some kind of head honcho who kind of tells them what to do, okay? Somehow, some way, that's the way it functions, okay? Who these entities are, I'm not 100% sure, okay? I just kind of, not to overthink it too much, just consider them like a demonic, okay? Just imagine there's this little demonic subset that runs the show, and as you're awakening, convinces all of the other NPCs to join in the narrative and harass you. Think of it that way. It's much simpler if you think of it that way, and that way you don't entertain it too much and you can push forward. But anyway, so when I was in Barcelona, I noticed it was, like, mostly adults. And when I moved to France, I noticed that the demographics of the ones who seemed to be kind of, like, running the show or, like, actively involved were a lot of teenagers, which was, like, very weird to me. So I don't know what that means about the next generation coming up in this matrix, if it's being implemented, like, using a mass consciousness for the younger generation that are going to be the ones to, I don't know, continue to carry out these kind of demonic agendas in the future. I don't know how it's working. It's just very weird. But let's get back on track. So the point is, it can be anybody basically around you. And one of the things that you might try to do is to document evidence about it. You can do this to a certain degree. I've done this to a certain degree, especially when it was related to things concerning my banking or finances, things related to the job, okay? Because you will definitely see that they try to pull kind of shenanigans, okay? I would say they're always up to something, these NPCs. They'll try to pull shenanigans. So it makes you want to try to, cross your T's and make sure you double check and redouble check things a couple times. I try to avoid accepting things from people who are contacting me first. I like to be the one to contact the person or make the initiative or something like this, because that way I know, I don't know, just to make sure like you're not getting involved in any kind of like things that are trying to like set you up or anything like that. I don't know. I've been left with that sensation of I guess you could say like paranoia, that I try to make sure that I take the initiative and like, I double check, I call, I make the phone calls, I double check, I write the emails. I don't just wait for so and so to call me and tell me this and that. And if they do, I always reconfirm. Okay? And doing this, I've found so many things that didn't make sense, and that's how I started to realize also that it was like a lot of individuals involved in all of this. So when you say like, should I go to the police department or something like this and report that I'm being gang stalked? I wouldn't. I personally wouldn't, because in this day and age, people will probably say like something is wrong with you, like you're making it up, etc., etc. And in my case, there were a lot of times where it was the actual authorities who were like running around and doing things. And like I said, they really don't have any reason to. So they didn't really necessarily interfere with me, okay? They just would make sure like they're in places where you see them, or driving around, or just doing really weird things so that you notice their presence. And a lot of people have also reported like this. And this is not a paranoia. This is not, like, people who say that they're being gang stalked, that they are imagining it or something like this, or jumping to conclusions. Like, no. It can't be that everywhere around the world people are reporting the same exact situations, because one thing about the Matrix is that the Matrix is everything, okay? There are no coincidences. Everything is synchronicity. Everything is scripted, and to some point it is scripted by numbers. And therefore, when these things are happening, you'll notice that there are a lot of loops, kind of like things repeating themselves. Even just in the way, for example, I'll give you my example, in certain things that have happened to me in the past, and then how I, what our living situation now, it's like meant to like repeat a certain experience from the past. So it's just a lot of looping. So you just have to be able to recognize it, and you will recognize it the more that you are awakening and you are praying and you are fasting. I want to mention that fasting is very important in your spiritual development. I'm going to probably do a whole different video related to speaking about your diet and fasting and prayer and all of this later on in raising your frequency. So so in my opinion, I personally would try to make sure you have certain paperwork and receipts and things like this in order, in case you want to double check things. But it's really more for you to kind of notice and see who's who, testing the spirit, see who you can trust, see who you can't trust. Okay, it's really more for you. But I would not necessarily, unless like you can really prove it without a doubt, go to any kind of authorities. But if you want to know, the NPCs tend to be quite coward, and they have a very big fear of being found out or caught. So if you can catch them and hold them accountable, please do so. Please do so for, the rest of us. Anyways, thank you so much. Bye-bye.